The main risk factors for preventable chronic diseases are tobacco use, lack of physical activity, and excessive alcohol use. The risk factors have caused unpreventable and preventable diseases like disability and death. To reduce these risk factors, prevent diseases or injury before it ever occurs, reduce the impact of a disease or injury that has already occurred, soften the impact of an ongoing illness or injury that has lasting effects. We all need to invest our time and money in improving healthy lifestyle behaviors by increasing physical activity and improving our diet. By doing this, almost 35% of early deaths will be avoided. Our integrative nutrition health specialist, Betty Olayinka Folari Akinlosotu, aka BOFA, advocates for this every Sunday on Health Corner and Nutrition segments showing on Healthy Living with BOFA channel, where she also features professionals on interview with expert segments. Join us every Sunday, 2 p.m. US time, 7 p.m. UK and Nigeria time, 8 p.m. South African time. See you there.
Teens Can Cook Foundation, in collaboration with the Nigerian Television Authority NTA Lagos, present the second edition of Teens Can Cook competition. For registration and participation, obtain a form of 5,000 naira from NTA Yaba Lagos office or at number 56 Okwebi Road, Salvation Bus Stop, Ikeja, Lagos. The winner gets an all-expense-paid trip to the United Kingdom. The first runner-up gets a laptop. The second runner-up gets a set of cookers. The third runner-up, a multifunctional dryer. And the fourth runner-up gets a set of non-stick pans. Hurry now. For inquiries, call the NTA Marketing Manager on 0816 0087 or Duayo on 0805 111 3510.
Teens Can Cook Foundation, in conjunction with Nigerian Television Authority, NTA, coming to life in January. Register yourself. Don't miss out.
Teens Can Cook, uncovering the prominent chef in you.
Welcome everyone to today's edition. This is Healthy Living with BOFA Health and Nutrition Talk Show. I'm Betsy Olayinka Folari Akinlosotu, aka BOFA. Thank you so much for joining us today. God bless you all. Yes, good to prevent your eye from the light. You see, it feels so terrifying and scary when I hear a woman killed her husband or a man killed his wife. It feels so sad, insensitive, and weird. Yes, it feels really, really bad. Excuse me, when will this stop in our society? When exactly are we going to put an end to domestic violence? Do we really sit back at times as an individual, as a family, as a community, and as a nation to think, why is the rate of death caused by domestic violence increasing instead of declining? Why are we not thinking in that direction? Maybe because we fail to build a comprehensive solution to domestic violence. That's why there is an increase in domestic violence death. Solution to domestic violence need to include both short-term and long-term strategies. Yes, long-term strategy should aim at educating the public and empowering couples, especially women, to reinstate their lives without violence. It should also include development programs that create atmosphere of anti-domestic violence in the community. Before I continue with these strategies, let us first of all understand what abusive and violent household is. How does it look like? How does abusive and violent household look like? How does it look like? Abuse and violence are two separate behaviors. Now, what is considered an abusive household? Let's have clear understanding of what is considered as an abusive household. A household is abusive if expression of anger include any form of violence or threat of violence. I'm going to expatiate more on that violence in a few minutes. But let me let you understand this. Abuse can be verbal or physical. An abuse is considered verbal when it comes in form of psychological or mental abuse that involves the use of oral language, gestured language, and written language directed to a person. And this includes the act of harassing, labeling, insulting, scolding, rebuking, excessive yelling towards an individual. It can also include the use of derogatory terms, the delivery of statements intended to frighten, humiliate, is an act of decreasing the self-confidence of a person and making him or her feel powerless. When a person's self-concept is attacked, is being abused. Physical and verbal abuse both occur in a variety of settings, and both have negative long-term effect. Abuse is anything that hurts you, either mentally, physically, or emotionally, and is usually carried out by a person in a position of authority. So, any weak vessel in a relationship does not abuse. Anyone with no controlling power does not abuse. Basically, the abuser will always be a controlling hand in a marriage. Person that's being abused, let's talk about what that person feels. Emotional abuse, just like physical abuse. Don't forget, emotional abuse is also known as verbal abuse. Can have long-term effect on the brain and the body. In fact, according to one study, severe emotional abuse can be as damaging as physical abuse and contribute to depression and low self-esteem at the same time over time. Mark those two words, depression and self-esteem. Yes, it can cause lack of confidence. That's what low self-esteem is, lack of self-confidence. The feelings that make one feel incompetent, not holding yourself in a high regard. When you often feel shy or anxious around others, a feeling that makes you hide yourself away from social situations that stop you from trying new things and avoid things you find joy in doing. That is what emotional abuse can cause. Yes, it can cause low self-esteem. And as for depression, this is even worse. This is a serious medical illness that negatively affects how you feel, the way you think, and how you act. This particular mood disorder causes a persistent feeling of sadness and loss of interest, which will, of course, interfere with your daily activities. Trust me, the healing for emotional abuse takes a while. It really takes a longer time to heal. We all see physical abuse. Why? Because we see blood coming out of the body. We see bruises. We see head or eyes swelling up. We see red eyes, bumps, all those stuff. So we think that is all violence or abuse it's all about. No. What about those women, those men who remain silent, who refuse to talk, and meanwhile they are suffering silently what we call emotional abuse? They don't want to talk about it, especially men. Men don't want to talk about it because it's an insult. Telling people that your wife beats you, your wife insults you, and you are suffering from it. Who do you tell that story? Your fellow, men? No. They live and die with these emotions. They die in silence. You see many people having depression. I've encountered multiple people, many people suffering depression because of marriage. Their relationship put them in that dilemma. They put them in that situation. They are nursing depression, high blood pressure, hypertension, which is caused by emotional abuse, by mental abuse. They are still suffering from it. They are still nursing it now. And once you have high blood pressure, hypertension, you have it for life. You can only manage or control it. You live with it for the rest of your life. If you are lucky, you will not die of hypertension, heart attack. But many people die of this type of health problems. Hypertension, heart attack. And what is the cause? Emotional abuse. Now let's talk about violence. There are 3 phases in the cycle of violence. Tension building phase. This is when the anger is coming out on you. It's telling you, hit her, push him, cut his hair, kill him. Then when you actually, carry out all this thing, your head is telling you, the spirit in you is telling you, that is when we call acute or crisis phase. When you kill the person, or you hit the person, you slap the person, you push and hit the person, your head against the wall, and the blood starts coming out, that is what we call acute or crisis phase. And the last one is called calm or honeymoon phase. This is when you realize that, oh my goodness, I've killed him, I've killed her, I've hurt her, I've done this. Oh, why did I do this? Oh, I'm going to jail. Oh, I'm going to be sentenced to death because I've committed murder. This is calm or honeymoon phase. When you realize your mistake, when the deed has been done, and you are looking for solution, this is calm. And you cannot do it when you are boiling, when you are really aggravating. You cannot do all this. You can't realize the repercussion when the deed has not been done. It is when you kill the person or you hit the person, you cut somebody, you break something, maybe the leg or the head. That's when you calm down. Hey, this is what we call calm or honeymoon phase. In many circumstances, in any situation we find ourselves, we are not supposed to exercise our energy on any of these phases in the first place. All these 3 phases, we are not even in any way supposed to exercise any of them. We are not supposed to welcome it. We are not supposed to even think about any of this. Because violence in a relationship is a crime. In fact, to me, it's a disease. So you don't even allow this disease, don't even get contaminated. Don't get infected with this disease at all, which we call violence, abuse. We've heard and read both online and in the books what violence is. In fact, multiple movies have demonstrated how brutal and deadly violence is. Researchers also confirmed that domestic abuse, call it domestic violence or intimate partner violence, is a pattern of behavior in any relationship that is used to gain or maintain power and control over an intimate partner. It could be a use of physical force so as to injure, abuse, damage, or destroy. So violence is an extreme form of aggression such as assault, rape, or murder. It has many causes, including frustration. You get frustrated. You get exhausted. Please don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there is a perfect marriage somewhere or anywhere. There is no marriage or relationship without one or more issues. We all face all this problem, one problem or the other in our marriages. But how we manage it, how we handle it, that's what matters. And it's different. The way we all manage it is quite different. But what makes it turbulent is there is a lot of change, argument, confusion, violence, and disorder in place. What makes it toxic is when you feel unsupported, misunderstood, humiliated, or attacked. If you start feeling that, oh, I'm not comfortable in this situation, in this relationship I found myself, I'm being humiliated, I'm scared, there's no peace, I can't think straight, I'm getting exhausted, you know, I can't breathe. In this situation I find myself, that means that relationship is toxic. It is toxic. When you are coming inside your home, you call marriage, you are afraid of coming in to see your children, your family. Some can't even come back after the fight. They stay in friends or family's house for days before they can enter into that house. That is toxic marriage. On a basic level, any relationship that makes you feel, I repeat, any relationship that makes you feel worse rather than better can become toxic over time. If you feel it now, whatever you are feeling now, if you're not feeling better, if you are not happy, problem. There is a fire on the mountain. You need to run away from that relationship. None of this is healthy. It's better you don't go into it now if you have not entered into it, than going into it and trying to exit. It won't be so easy for you. It can be damaging and contribute to depression, mental health, and other health problems going on there. You just have to sit down, think about it. I'm talking to women like me, all the women. I'm talking to you. I'm not on anybody's side. I'm not on men's side, I'm against beating. I'm not on women's side, I'm against assault, abuse, or beating, because we have some women that beat their husbands as well. I'm not in support of any gender. I'm sitting in the middle, talking to the left, talking to the right. I mean, women and men. Because they both get abused. They both get beaten in this relationship. They both get humiliated and attacked in this relationship. Now, what caused a person to be abusive? Something must cause something. Only reason why you are abusive is because you believe that you have rights to control. That is why you are abusive. Abusive people believe they have the right to restrict their partner's lives, often either because they believe their own feelings and needs should be the priority in the relationship, or because they enjoy exerting the power that such abuse gives them. They exploit the ego, the authority, supremacy the abuse gives them. That's what makes people abusive. There is one thing to be in control, and there is another thing to be abusive. They are two separate things, two different things, two different behaviors. The causes of abuse. Out of thousands of causes, I only agree to one, because this particular one, this particular cause of abuse is the solution to the violence. Is the solution to domestic violence that goes on in our community, in our home right now. Unfortunately, no one is thinking in that direction at all. What is this cause? When a man or woman grows up with addictive parents, when you grow up with abusive parents, it has effect on your life. This is where I'm going. And I see it to be the only solution to domestic violence. Nothing to think about. All this we have been hearing, we heard thousands of people, we have counselors, therapists, relationship and marriage experts, even motivational speakers. We've seen them talking about solutions. I've never seen anyone thinking in this direction. That when somebody, they talk about it, they say it, but they never mention that this is the only solution. And I'll tell you how this can be the solution to solve the problem. An addict blames others for the reason they engage in their destructive behavior, while the victims are often forced to remain silent and acceptance of their behavior. The end result is a lot of pent-up anger and abusive behavior. As an adult, the victims subconsciously seek out others to blame for their actions. This simply means you blame your parent being the cause of your abusive behavior. Okay. I agree. I totally agree with you. Your parent caused you this mess. Your parents are responsible for your behavior. Why? Because you see your father constantly, every day beating your mother. You see your mother always abusing and insulting or beating your father. Yes. You learn from them. You think it's a normal life to live. You think it's acceptable. You think it's okay. It is not okay. That is why you are beating your woman. That is why you are beating your husband, insulting your husband today. Yes, we are all guilty. I am guilty. You are also guilty of this mess. But do you ever think you can stop being abusive, which of course often results to violence? Do you? I'm sure you don't. You are not the only one in this mess. Both your parents, yourself, and your children are all in the same mess. Because you see your parent doing it in your presence. You are doing the same thing in the presence of your children as well. So you are all in it. Because your children will blame you for his or her own behavior when he or she grows up to marry and start hitting his or her husband. Yes, but you are the only one who can stop the violence, especially domestic one. Now, you are the only one that can stop your child or your children being the same person you are today in the future. Because the change must start from you for peace to reign, both in your own marriage right now and your children and your generations to come marriage in the future. For happiness to manifest, you are responsible for that. Yes, you are the only solution. There are some potential causes of controlling behavior that makes someone controlling and abusive. Number one is low self-esteem. Yes, when you are being micromanaged or controlled by someone else, traumatic past experiences, a need to feel in control, or a need to feel above someone else. These are the things that make a man or woman controlling and be an abusive. Traumatic past experience, you've seen it happening to your parent. That gives you power. That's okay, it's in your head. This is a normal life. Your father says to your mother, I am the head of the family. What I say is what you do. That is in your head. You feel you also can be in control when you marry. I am the head of the family. My father said that to my mother. When my mother don't listen, my father hits her. So if my wife do the same thing, I'm right, I can hit her as well. That is it. That is what makes someone controlling and abusive. Women, are you really thinking about how to solve women abuse? Men, are you really thinking how to solve men abuse, domestic violence? Instead of carrying placards with say no to women abuse, say no to women violence, excuse me, why is it always women protesting against domestic violence, or call it intimate partner violence, by the way? Why? Why haven't we for one day seen men protesting against men abuse? Why? Or do you think men are immune to violence? Of course not. Men get abused too. What about emotional, psychological abuse? The torture, the words, the insult, the scolding that you pass on your wife or your husband. And yet, he doesn't retaliate. He doesn't beat you. And right there inside of him is nothing, is being tortured with what you said to him. He condoned them. So why is your husband not talking about it? Why is he not coming together with other fellow men and carry placards and be saying, say no to men emotional abuse? So it's both ways. We are all in it. Women, are you thinking what I'm thinking? I bet no. But this following question will put your brain at work. You begin to think about it, that this is true. What Bofa is saying today is true. If you want to be sincere to yourself, I'm being sincere to myself. That's why I sat down. I actually heard this from my friend. When he mentioned that statement, I was like, seriously, this is true. I wasn't thinking in that direction. But trust me, believe me or not, this is the best way to reduce or to prevent domestic violence. Women, it all lies on us. It is our responsibility to do this, to stop and prevent domestic violence, to stop abuse. If you like, keep your mouth shut. If you like, start running your mouth. Men, same thing I'm saying to you. But I'm talking to my fellow women. What are we doing to reduce the rate of violence, or call it abuse, in our community, in our homes? What are we doing to prevent domestic violence? Why don't we come together and begin to educate our sons against violence and abuse? Why don't we come together and begin to train our daughters values, morals, culture, and tradition, especially respect for one another? Let us begin to educate our children about how they should treat others and be treated. Let us start teaching our sons and our daughters that respect is the minimum in a relationship, and lead by example. Let the children know that violence will not solve the problems. Let us begin to prepare and nurture our children and grandchildren to be the men and women we all want our daughters and sons, future husband and wives, to be. Let us begin to plant the seed of peace and harmony in our boys and girls from now. The exact excellent and loving spirit we all wanted and expected in our girls and boys, future husbands and wives, so they don't live in the future a violent life like we live, like the life the parents live. So we should protect it from repeating itself in the future for our children. When you are talking back to your husband, why don't you slow it down? And when your husband is talking back at you, why don't you face your son, your daughter? Hey girl, this is not right. Your daddy talking to me, insulting me, is not a way of life. Please, don't do that to your wife. Daughter, don't do that to your husband. Why don't we start doing that now? And the only way to do this is by speaking out against all forms of violence, including the media's portrayal of violence. Let us start respecting and embracing diversity and striving for equality for everyone. Let us start choosing our words carefully and respectfully when speaking of any gender before our children. Let us start teaching the children to refuse to coerce or manipulate their partners in order to get their ways, but be willing to compromise. It is now we must start making the children learn about healthy boundaries, and they should not be afraid to voice their feelings in their relationships. Let us start now. Refusing to let TV, movies, music, or other people define what it means to be a woman or a man for us. It is time to advocate for more youth violence prevention programs. Right now, we should all start pledging to never commit or condone acts of violence. It is never too late to start working towards eliminating oppression of all kinds. Start now. Start thinking globally and acting locally. And lastly, let us come together. Let us come together and start teaching the children to ask, not to assume they know what their partners want. You know why we want to do this? Because our mothers, our fathers, our parents failed to train us, to nurture us, to educate us in this way. That is why domestic violence, abuse increase every day. Our parents' inability to train us in this way increases violence every day and makes many marriages fail. The rate of single parents increases every day because of this mess. Our parents refuse to agree that it is their responsibility to teach us, to train us, to nurture us and educate us that this is not the right way. So I think the only solution to stop domestic violence is to start it now. What our parents could not do, we need to start it now to prevent our children's future against violence. Until we do all this, without intervention of all these steps mentioned, the frequency and severity of the abuse will increase over time. Write it down. I've listened to many solutions. Nothing is working. Instead, it keeps increasing. Domestic violence keeps increasing. Today, a husband killed a wife. Tomorrow, a wife killed husband. Believe it or not, it will continue if we refuse to stop it now. Violence or any form of abuse against men and women is a taboo. It is a crime. It is contagious. Don't get infected because there's no cure for it. And we must say no to men and women abuse. Period. Case closed. Let the change start with you and I. Now. That's all we can educate on violence, on domestic abuse. Please join us next week while we feature another professional on Interview with Expert, educating on food portion and distortion control. I'm Bonfa. Sleep well and wake up to a beautiful and productive week. See you next week. Good night.